This is Dylan Moore with Irida TV, and I'm going to be looking at a Libs of TikTok video and doing a little bit of commentary. This hopefully is not going to be a normal react video like you might see where I'm sensationalizing how crazy this is. And if you don't know anything about Libs of TikTok, I'm sure you do. But if you don't, this is just a woman on Twitter who finds absolute crazy stuff about how children are being desexualized, or not desexualized, hypersexualized, shown all this LGBTQ propaganda insanity. And then, I mean, ultimately, this is usually not the stated opinion, but ultimately priming these children for destroying their future, destroying their bodies, and for likely pedophilia. So this is I presume, a mom in the state of California coming to a school board after she found out something very interesting happening at her child's school. So here we go.
That the district recently sent this flyer, which I can provide to you, to all teachers, inviting them to a training titled Responding to Resistance. The bullet points mention that teachers will learn, quote, how to respond to resistance against rainbow clubs. Now, the discovery of this flyer was made known to us by an elementary school teacher, and it is quite alarming. It was sent just a few weeks after parents discovered a secretive lunchtime UBU club at Pleasant Grove Elementary School. Oddly, the district has not given much response to the concerned parents, but shortly after the incident sent this flyer out to all teachers.
So this is interesting here. I mean, before it's interesting, it's disgusting, it's deplorable, it's horrible. But we all know that it's disgusting and deplorable and horrible. Let me point out what is interesting, is that there's this secret group at an elementary school and a rainbow club, an LGBTQ indoctrination thing that's happening in secret from the parents. The parents happen to find out because an elementary school teacher tells them. And then the response from the school district isn't to address any of the concerns of the parents. It's to send a flyer out to all the teachers on how do you deal with parents who are trying to resist the rainbow club. And she points out, she keeps saying, well, this is weird for the parents, this is weird for the parents. And the interesting thing to point out here, if you look at the faces of these guys, I don't think I could zoom in anymore with this, but if you look at the faces of these school board members, do they look interested, offended, bored? They look bored to me. Like, oh, here's this new parent squawking about stuff that we do, and we're smarter than she is, and we know better than she is, so we just got to sit here and listen for 3 minutes and then get on our merry way. That's the face that they have. And there's this emphasis of the parents jumping up and down saying, I'm the parent, I'm the parent, I'm the parent. You should be respecting me because I'm the parent. And no one ever seems to respect that. We could be talking about that. Let's keep listening.
It seems that the district's response to rightfully concerned parents of elementary-age children is to ignore them and then provide teachers with training on how to push back, ignore, and keep more secrets from parents.
Everything in this conversation and the expressions of the school board amplify this, is that the parents are not interesting. The parents don't have a say.
This is blatantly disrespectful to parents who deserve to be partners in their child's education.
They deserve to be partners, but are they?
And you can be swayed so easily at such a young age that, if you're constantly being inculcated into this lifestyle and this mindset, you begin to wonder who you are. Children are very malleable, right? And they need to be protected. They need to not be pushed into some of these things. And the fact that these clubs are secretive, they're not letting parents know. They're
secretive. They're not letting parents know. And then, I mean, from a intellectual, from a logical standpoint, these two women are making succinct, clear, powerful arguments, but they're evaporating into nothing. Why?
like it's undercover. And, we know that a lot of evil takes place in darkness. And we don't want our children to be in this darkness where they're being manipulated, maneuvered, brainwashed. I really want to say, vote no. Do not let this happen, because parents need to be aware of what their children are being offered.
So the parent, I presume this is a parent, maybe it's not, but the parent is saying that the parents need to be aware, telling the school board, who theoretically works for her, for the benefit of her and her children, or for the benefit of the parents and their children, telling them that the parents should be involved. But the school board doesn't seem to care.
And they need to be able to say, I don't want my child going to that. I want to protect my child. I want to be able to have an option out. And I'm really concerned that these clubs, these rainbow clubs, and the LGBTQ format is directed at 3rd to 5th grade students.
Right, prepubescent kids don't understand what's going on.
And I know some of it is coming at even
that are
younger
believe
than
anything
that.
that you tell them. Okay, that's the end of the video. So we see this stuff all the time, everywhere now, right? Let me maximize myself here. We see this stuff all the time, everywhere now, and I'm not pulling this up again to be like, oh my God, look at how the school board is just ignoring the parents and there's this LGBT perversion stuff going on. No, my point here is to look at systems and to show why these women who are righteous in their actions, saying that basically you're disturbing the natural order, you're perverting the natural order of things, which is I need to take care of my child, and you are harming my child. And because it's my child, you should respect me and you should listen to me. And the school board's like, just look at them. They're like, eh. And this is what we've been seeing all over the country. I mean, all over the Western world now, but particularly over the country, that there's just this, we don't care what the parents have to say. Why is that? The reason is because parenthood itself is seen as an obstacle to those who control the state. And I want to be careful when I say it's not like everybody who controls. I mean, obviously, there's people in the state who are parents, and they feel strongly that the parents should have control over their children's upbringing as opposed to the state, or as opposed to the educational system. But there's actors within the state that hate the idea of parenthood, and one of the ways for them to increase their power is if they can disconnect parents from the upbringing of children. I mean, this is 1984. This is Brave New World. This is Plato's Republic, is if you can disconnect the upbringing of the children from the parents, you can eliminate the culture that the parents have and prevent it from being passed on to the next generation, and the next generation can be molded the way that you want. How is this being done? And how can they be so brazen, and in some cases, how can these school boards be so cowardly, where often, for, I'd say, the past 4 years now, we've seen that school board members have been running and winning, saying, hey, we're going to stop this stuff. And then they turn around and they appear to fold. And it's like, what are you guys doing? And what I want to showcase here is that they're barking up the wrong tree. They're barking up the wrong tree. So this happened within the state of California. I want to show you something interesting about the laws within the state of California. So this is from a cursory search. I did not do a deep dive. This is a cursory search into the laws of California. I found the General Education Code provisions. Oh, I got to share my screen again. I found the General Education Code provisions. Share this tab instead. There we go. The General Education Code provisions, which these are all the California state laws about education. And if you come down here to educational equity, this is Chapter 2 within the California Code. So let me zoom in. I'm going to read a little bit of this, and I know this isn't as exciting as me jumping up and down going, oh my God, look at the crazy things that they're doing to our kids, which it is. But does that fix the issue? I want to fix the issue, and in order for us to fix the issue, we have to understand the system. Let's look at a piece of the system of the California law on education. So, this is Chapter 2, Educational Equity. It is the policy of the state of California to afford all persons in public schools, regardless of their disability, gender identity, gender expression, nationality, race or ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, or any other characteristic that is contained in the definition of hate crimes set forth in the Penal Code, including immigration status, equal rights, and opportunities in the educational institutions of the state. The purpose of this chapter is to prohibit acts that are contrary to that policy and provide remedies therefore. So first and foremost, hate crimes. We all know that hate crimes are kind of this made-up thing. Like, is it a crime or is it not? Why do we have to add the word hate to it? So the concept of hate crimes is already embedded into the law, into California state law regarding education. Let's keep going. Oh, yeah, and I mean, it has all this stuff about gender and gender identity and gender expression. And, you know, let's give it a take here. There's a trick here, is that obviously we don't want to discriminate against people in schools, right? In terms of the natural aspects of themselves. I mean, the first thing they have here is disability. Of course you don't want to discriminate on disability. Of course you don't want to discriminate on gender. Of course you don't want to discriminate on race or ethnicity or nationality or religion. But then they toss in this gender identity thing, right? And then they toss in the hate crimes thing. So there's these little pieces that are like they add these weak chinks in the armor, or chinks in the armor that make weak spots where stuff can be inserted in. All pupils have the right to fully participate in the educational process, free from discrimination and harassment. Again, this sounds great. California's public schools have an affirmative obligation to combat racism, sexism, and all forms of bias. Now, okay, combating racism is good, combating sexism, okay, fine, but all forms of bias, that's a pretty broad stroke. What does all forms of bias mean? And as we go down, I mean, it talks more about, harassment isn't going to be tolerated. There's an urgent need to prevent acts of hate violence and bias-related incidents. Oh, hate violence and bias-related incidents. There's an urgent need to teach and inform pupils in public schools about their rights. And again, this is like traditional constitutional language, but you're starting to see that the meaning of rights is starting to change into bias. You have rights not to be a victim of bias. So it's the intent of the legislature that each public school undertake educational activities to counter discriminatory incidents on school grounds within constitutional bounds and to minimize and eliminate hostile environment on school grounds that impairs the access of pupils to equal educational opportunity. Okay, so this is what's setting this up, is that, again, yes, we don't want to discriminate against anybody, but you've created this fake group called gender identity. You've created this fake concept called hate crimes. You created this fake idea known as bias, or fake idea that bias is bad. Well, I'm biased against child molesters. I'm biased against criminals. Is it bad to be biased against those sorts of things? So, what the part that I want to get at here, where'd it go? I'm going to find it. Yes. So as we scroll down, I'm not going to sit here and read this whole thing. It's more of the same. Education is a fundamental right under the California Constitution, under California law. California schools must create equitable learning environments where all pupils, including lesbian, gay, bisexual, transsexual, queer, and questioning. There's the LGBT stuff. I can't find the end of the sentence, but you see where this is going. Like we got to make sure that we create agencies that combat. It's not just like, hey, we need to make sure that this doesn't happen. We need to actively create and fund agencies and hire people within those agencies to make sure this stuff happens. Now, here's the kicker. restricting access to classroom and library materials because they feature LGBTQ people or were written by LGBTQ authors discriminates against LGBTQ people and constitutes censorship in violation of California law and policy. Similarly, efforts to categorically exclude topics related to race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, or other protected characteristics like the LGBTQ stuff, or of present or historical discrimination based on protected characteristics from school libraries, curricula, or classroom discussions constitute censorship that violates law and policy. Whoa, wait a second. So go back to this Libs of TikTok video, right? But there's a secret meeting about, there's a rainbow club teaching kids about LGBTQ stuff, and they're not telling the parents. And when the parents found out and they wanted to talk about it, there was a flyer that went out that taught teachers how to talk to parents that might resist this. What's going on? What's going on is that these parents are actively, let me get back to the tab. They are actively attempting to commit censorship that violates California law and policy. You are barking up the wrong tree at the school board. You are barking up the wrong tree at the school board. You're taking your righteous energy, your righteous anger, and filtering it toward nothing. In fact, it's worse than nothing because it's a trap. I didn't pull it up, and I'm not going to pull it up this time. I pulled it up in something else before. Is that, remember the whole, I don't want to violate the YouTube or offend the YouTube algorithm. Let me pull myself up here a little more. Let's go like that. I don't want to violate the YouTube algorithm. But do we remember when the FBI started saying that parents at school board meetings were domestic? Yes, that word violates or offends the YouTube algorithm. A man's daughter gets raped in a girl's bathroom because a cross-dressing boy comes into the girl's bathroom saying that he's transgender and rapes his daughter. So he gets mad and he goes in and yells at the school board, gets arrested, and then now the National School Board Association is sending a letter to the Department of Justice saying that we've got domestic in the school boards. They're called parents. Huh? So the system is being designed in such a way that is removing the parents as the people who are in charge, who are responsible for their children, and is moving it over to the state. I couldn't find it in California state law, but I know it's in there somewhere. I didn't take a deeper dive. I'm in Washington state. I have been shown it in Washington state law. The stakeholder of children's education in Washington state is the legislature, or another way of saying the state, right? It is not the parents. So in terms of that language, stakeholder, a stakeholder is who the benefits of something accrue to. If I'm the stakeholder of something, just like I'm the stockholder in something, if I'm a stockholder in McDonald's, the benefits of McDonald's are supposed to accrue to me. So if the stakeholder of a child's education is supposed to be the state, then the benefits of that education is supposed to accrue to the state. And then when the parents walk in and they jump up and down and say, my kids, my rights, I'm mad. And then we turn around and we look at federal law, and the federal law says, hey, anybody that appears to intend to intimidate or coerce a government policy is a domestic. I'm not making that up. In fact, you know what? I am going to look it up. U.S. Code, domestic. This is what domestic means. The term domestic means activities that A, involve acts dangerous to human life that are a violation of the criminal laws of the United States or of any state. And B, appear to be intended to 1, to intimidate or coerce a civilian population, 2, to influence the policy of a government by intimidation or coercion, or 3, affect the conduct of a government by mass destruction, assassination, or kidnapping, and C, occur primarily within the territorial jurisdiction of the United States. So most of that sounds like what domestic should be, but appear to be intended to influence the policy by intimidation. That's 3 levels of subjectivism. You appear to intend to intimidate, right? So when the guy whose daughter gets raped by the boy in the girl's bathroom goes to the school board, gets hopping, jumping up and down mad, is he appearing to intend to intimidate the policy of a government? Or appear to intend to influence the policy of a government through intimidation? Sounds like we need to send a letter to the FBI, the Department, no, not the FBI, but the Department of Justice. We got some domestic here. Going back to censorship that violates law, that violates California law and policy. Parenthood is seen as a problem by those who want to control us. And systematically, they're incorporating into state law and state policy. It's the same in every state that you find. It's going to have its own flavor of it, but it's in the same of every state that you find. They're incorporating it into state law and policy such that the parents have less and less to do with the children. Typically, people want to talk about rights. That's becoming old hat. The proper term is stakeholder. So if you're living in the state of California and you want to do something about this LGBTQ perversion garbage that's happening, particularly in elementary schools, until you address this, until you address the fact that you trying to restrict access. Remember, I mean, what did that woman say? Hey, we as parents, we at least want the ability to opt our children out of this. No. That's restricting access to classroom and library materials because they feature LGBTQ stuff. That constitutes censorship that violates California law and policy. Until you change that, that school board can do nothing. You follow me? Until you change that, that school board can do nothing. You're barking up the wrong tree. I'm not saying this to scare people because I know it sounds really hard to change a state law. I'm saying this to encourage people. And there is a solution. Wait till the end of the video. I'll be talking solutions. Is that if you could hone in on the right thing, suddenly battling this becomes a lot more achievable. And jumping up and down in front of your school board, like when people, I think there's this idea that when you go to a government meeting and you stand up and speak, like your voice matters. I mean, maybe it matters in as much as you can influence the school board or whatever government meeting that is at that moment in those 3 minutes that you have. But if they just want to sit there and twiddle their thumbs and look at their phones like they do in the Seattle City Council, and just wait for you to shut up and go away because you only have 3 minutes and then vote however the way they want to vote. You sitting there talking doesn't affect that. You sitting there up and down, jumping up and down about your rights and my kids and parents should have this. It doesn't do a damn thing. You got to focus on the system. And this is a perfect example of that system. Any attempt to restrict material, LGBTQ material, violates California state law and is considered censorship. Now, I want to show you something else. Oh, one other thing about California here. This one. So this is like the next subsection of this chapter. There's also this prevailing idea that, okay, it's gotten too crazy in the public schools. I'm going to take my kid out of public school and homeschool him or private school him or take him somewhere else, and that'll show those public schools. Yeah, the states usually think of that already. Here's another part of the California Code. There shall be no discrimination on the basis of the characteristics listed in Section 220 in any aspect of the operation of alternative or charter schools. So restricting access to LGBTQ stuff in a private elementary school in the state of California is considered censorship and violates California state law and policy. We're looking at how the system is set up here. Now, I'm also going to look at the state of Washington. I live in Washington. I know a little bit more about what's going on there. So two things just happened very recently in Washington. And we know that whatever happens in California, the states of Oregon and the states of Washington typically aren't that far behind. So, I'm going to start with this one first. So there has been a massive, massive win in the state of Washington. Share this tab instead. Zoom in a little bit. There's been this massive, massive win in the state of Washington that, and I believe California has this too, through the initiative process, the citizens can actually get a bill to be voted on by the entire population of Washington state. And if that bill gets voted on, or actually, if the initiative gets enough signatures and it gets on the ballot and it passes on the ballot by initiative, it bypasses the governor and it bypasses the legislature and it goes straight into law. Now, before that happens, the legislature has an opportunity to vote on it. And in this case, there were actually 6 awesome initiatives that happened. I'm only going to be focusing on this one that were overwhelmingly popular. It had to do with reducing, getting rid of carbon cap and trade, restoring police pursuit, and getting rid of some other taxes, and this thing on parents' rights. And our Democrat-controlled legislature looked at this and said, we're going to lose these because they're supposed to go on the ballot next year. They looked at it this year going, if we let these go to the ballot next year, if we vote against them and let them go to the ballot next year, we're going to lose. So we might as well do it now and not look back in the future. So they took 3 of them, which was the police pursuit, the parents' rights, and I can't remember the third one that they took. But the 3 that they didn't take that they're letting people vote on are of course, ones that reduce the tax revenue of the state. Can't touch their money. But check this out. Check out what we got passed in Washington state through the Citizens Initiative. The first and foremost, the legislature finds that parents are the primary stakeholders in their children's upbringing. That's that magical language. That got worked into there. Everything now can be leveraged off of this one sentence. Because if parents are the primary stakeholders, not the state, not the legislature, not anybody else, that means the benefits of the children's upbringing need to accrue to the parents, not the state. Big deal. Parents and legal guardians of public school children younger than 18 years old have the following rights: to examine the textbooks, curriculum, and supplemental material in their child's classroom. This is a big deal because there's I don't know if it's happening in your state. It was happening here. This LGBTQ blah, blah, blah stuff is happening in the schools. The parents want to go look at it, and the school said, oh, you can't even look at it. We can't even show it to you. Parents have the rights to, make that go away. Parents have the rights to inspect their child's public school records. I highlighted this in advance. They have the right to inspect medical or health records of any mental health counseling, because, I mean, this is what this child mutilation, puberty blocking chemical garbage is coming from. It's medical and it's mental health counseling, right? This allows parents access to this because more and more laws were getting passed in Washington state saying, oh, the age of consent for gender transition surgery is 13 now, and oh, the parents don't have any right to see their child's medical history. And one just passed saying that if a child feels unsafe at home because their parents don't let them transition or whatever, that they can go hide in some state-sanctioned facility, and the parents have no right to know where that child is. And while they're at that state-sanctioned facility, they can undergo puberty blockers or whatever, right? This gets all that under control. They have the right to receive prior notification when medical services are being offered to their child, to receive notification when the school has arranged, or directly or indirectly, for medical treatment that results in the follow-up care beyond normal school hours. To receive written notices about surveys about the child's sexual experiences or attractions or family beliefs or morality or religion or political affiliations, because this is the data they're trying to pull from the kids, right? Any mental health or psychological problems of the child or the family member. To receive written notice and have the option to opt out of their child. To receive written notice and have the option to opt their child out of instruction on topics associated with sexual activity in accordance with RCW law, whatever. compare that to the California law that says any effort to do that constitutes censorship in violation of state law and policy. Yeah, those are the highlighted parts. So what this initiative has done has firmly, and the most important sentence is this one up front, that parents are the primary stakeholders of their child's upbringing. Now, when parents come into a school board meeting, they're the stakeholder. They're not, who's this person who has no authority over what's going on here? It's the stakeholder. Now, at the same time, this is supposed to go into effect in like 60 days or something. It's not 90 days after it gets passed. It got passed about a month ago. At the same time this happens, the legislature cooks up another law. Share this tab instead. Here we go. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. Zoom in. So this is Washington passing the LGBTQ stuff is mandatory. So the legislature be enacted by the legislature of the state of Washington. The legislature recognizes that Washington state law prohibits discrimination in public schools for certain protected classes. Of course, one of these protected classes are what we know. The legislature also acknowledges that school districts are required to adopt a policy related to the selection or removal of instructional materials. Under state rule, the instructional materials policy of each school district must establish and use appropriate screening criteria to identify and eliminate bias pertaining to protected classes. There's that word again. Bias against protected classes. LGBTQ is now a protected class. Gender identity is now a protected class, and if you have any bias toward that protected class, that needs to be removed. The legislature intends to expand these requirements by requiring school districts to adopt policies and procedures that incorporate adopting an inclusive curricula and selective inclusive instructional materials that include the histories, contributions, and perspectives of historically marginalized and underrepresented groups. So basically, we're not allowed to have a filter to remove anything that might have bias, and we do have a filter to make sure that we put in stuff that is biased in a certain angle, but we don't use the word bias because we seem to be redefining it. Going down to the next part that I felt was important. The legislature intends to promote culturally and experientially representative learning opportunities for all students by directing the Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction, that's a state level, he's like the governor of schools in the Washington state, basically, when revising or developing state learning standards to screen for inappropriate bias in the proposed state learning standards and to ensure the histories, contributions, and perspectives of historically marginalized and underrepresented peoples and communities are included in the standards. So, I mean, you're seeing that this is moving in the direction of California, like I said before, right? So, I mean, just adding more stuff. The model and policy, the procedure must require that the school all the school boards, all the administrators, everybody needs to be on the same page. And was there any other part that I wanted to highlight? Ah, yes. The schools need to include a screening, or I think this is the superintendent of public instruction needs to include a screening for biased content in each development or revision of state learning standard and ensure that the concepts of DEI are included, right? So just penetrating this DEI, this LGBTQ stuff, this sexual perversion stuff into every aspect, forcing all the school districts to push this on everybody. And there's the one last part that I highlighted down here. Here it is. In addition to notifying parents, schools, and the public of the revision schedules and timelines, the website posting must be updated as necessary to inform persons of the status of any pending revisions and of any plans or actions related to developing new state learning standards under subsection 1. So, this is the chink in their armor that they included in the bill or the law. And that this law passed, right? So on one hand, the citizenry of Washington state passed something really enforcing parents' rights and making parents the primary stakeholders of their children's upbringing. And on the same hand, the state legislature and the governor are continuing to shove down this LGBTQ agenda down the throats of the public school system in Washington state, similar to what we just saw in California. Now, again, looking at this systematically, how do we look at this systematically instead of just writing into our school board and going, what's the school board supposed to do about this? This is state law, right? Now, if parents by law have the right to inspect this, and then the bad law, I'll say the good law and the bad law itself says that, all this information needs to be publicly posted so parents can be notified. Now the parents can get involved. The wedge is there. The parents as primary stakeholder wedge is there to get involved to, first of all, expose what's happening inside here. And now, because they're the primary stakeholders, they now have the leverage that they need to address this sort of stuff. Right? Have you noticed in this conversation, I didn't use the term of any political party. I didn't refer to any single elected official, no governing person. I'm not saying that those people aren't important, but what I'm saying is the way that the system is set up is vital. And you can get your people elected to your local school board and say, we want to get this trash out of our school. You can't. It's against state law. You follow me here? If you want to fix this, you have to bark up the right tree. Now, I said I want to talk about solutions. This isn't to scare you. I want to give you hope. I want to give you resources in order to do this. I'm a part of, but I am connected to a group that specializes in systematic politics, in addressing things like this. In fact, that group had something to do with making sure that parents are the primary stakeholders of the children's upbringing, got passed in the Washington State Initiative. If you think that the state of California is too overarching and, oh my God, how are we ever, if I can't address it at the school board, how the heck am I ever going to address it at the state? If I identify that the censorship law is one of the key obstacles from us getting this stuff out of our schools, I'm not a member. I'm a student of the organization, not a member of the organization. The Center for Self-Governance, get a hold of me. I can connect you with it. The Center for Self-Governance can teach you how to create and garner influence to influence policymakers to change this sort of thing. It is so effective, it will blow your mind. It is so effective, you'll blow your mind. So again, This was a React video, and I know most React videos are kind of about, oh, look at this sensationalist thing, which this Lizard TikTok video was a sensationalist thing, and what the school district is doing is absolute insanity, and it's disgusting that the school board members, even if on one hand they're powerless, on the other hand they're not. They could be speaking up against it and helping coach people how to deal with it, right? They're just going with the flow because I like getting paid without doing any work. Is probably what's going on. And the parents come in with this righteous anger that they are ethically and morally correct about, but it's the efforts are fizzling into nothing. How do we take that energy and put it into something that actually affects the system that allows, in this specific case, parents to regain control over their children's upbringing? And it has to do with understanding, A, how your system works, and B, how to fix it. And B, how to fix it. And I am so happy in the state of Washington, we've got the first wedge in the door for how to fix it. So this has been Dylan with Irida TV. Seriously, contact me if you want to get connected with Center for Self-Governance and learn how to become a master at systematic politics to really have massive effect to change these sorts of things. You can find us at irida.tv or find our YouTube channel. Just search Irida TV. And thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.